Hi everybody, Kevin Bong here with Sikich. I lead the computer security incident response team here at Sikich. Today, the most common types of attack we're seeing are cyber extortion or ransomware attacks, especially targeting like manufacturers, other small businesses, organizations that, in the past haven't been a big target for these, hacking groups. And when we do these, every client we work with has basically the same regrets and lessons learned after it's all is said and done. Because of all the attacks we're seeing, I wanted to share these kind of regrets and lessons learned with you. The first one is all these attackers, by and large, are getting in through guessing credentials or stealing passwords used for remote desktop services, things like remoting in from home. It's not that hard to protect these services. Turn off RDP, put it behind a VPN, or add multi-factor authentication. So many of the people who get hit by these attacks do that within just a few days after the attack starts, but could have done it much earlier, much before the attack. Secondly, these attackers are getting in through phishing attacks. And these phishing attacks require the attacker to pivot in and put like malware or virus on the user's computer. A lot of this could be stopped by having good desktop antivirus that's up to date and has all the bells and whistles like firewalls and intrusion detection systems and things like that. Turn all the bells and whistles on and make sure it's on every system in the environment. And then the biggest regret everybody has is they learn that once these attackers get in to the network, they don't just start encrypting right away. First, they look around, they elevate privileges, capture administrator passwords, and they use that to do things like to delete online backups. They'll go and delete those. They're logging into your Hyper-V or virtual VMware, doing things like deleting all your virtual machine copies, deleting snapshots and things like that. And they're even stealing like passwords for your disk storage systems, like your NAS, your network attached storage, or your SAN. And they'll log in and actually like break the RAID arrays and reset it to factory defaults. So any data stored on your backup NAS or SAN isn't there anymore. People build these backups thinking about disaster like a tornado or a flood or something like that. But they're not thinking about cyber attackers that are targeting their backups. And when this attack happens, their backups are gone. The first one is to keep backing things up, at least critical things, to something that's offline, like a tape or a USB drive that you rotate, disconnect or put on a shelf every night so it's not on the network. The second one is to take those critical things like your backup servers, your hypervisor admin consoles, your NAS or your SAN admin consoles, and put them in what we call a hardened enclave. It's like a network segment that's highly secured and restricted where these systems go. And then if someone wants to use them, they either have to use multi-factor authentication to log into that, or maybe there's some source IP address whitelisting to block who can log in. Just a layer of protection so that the attacker can't just log right in with stolen passwords and start deleting data. Or the third option is to put those critical backups in like cloud-based third-party backup services. Generally, these services will back up the data to the cloud, but they don't have a way for an attacker to delete those. They would need like multi-factor authentication and things like that to log into the cloud to delete those backups. So those are the biggest things to do, the biggest regrets. Finally, after these attacks are happening, a lot of times we can't ever find out how did the attacker get in, when did the attacker get in, and what did he steal, because the client's logging wasn't configured. If you bring up a Windows server but you don't customize the logging configuration, the default configuration can store maybe only 2 days worth of logs before they overwrite or roll. And so if an attacker's been on your network for 2 or 3 weeks, inventorying data, stealing it, things like that, we aren't going to have that history to know when they got in, how they got there. And one final note, it's not just about recovering your backups anymore. Attackers are more and more creating shaming websites. So they're following through on these threats to actually disclose sensitive data they stole during the attack. And if you go to these ransomware shaming sites, you'll see lists of companies that have been breached by that organization and the data that they posted from that organization because the organization refused to pay. Be aware, these attacks are targeting every size, every type of organization. There's very high volume of it right now because the attackers are so successful with it. There's a number of things you can do today that aren't that difficult that will go very far to help protect your network from these types of attacks. If you have an attack like this or want more advice on how to protect your environment before an attack like this, please reach out to Sikich. We have people who can help with all those types of things. Thank you.